So he's going to be listening on YouTube.
I know exactly what he's going to be doing. He's going to be chirping me the same way I would be chirping him.
Yeah, absolutely. That's totally fair.
It's going to be fun.
Jacob Lebinski. Holy Monster. Anna Holmes. Ah, look at all these people. Matthew. Is that who you gave your thing to?
It sure is.
Yeah, this. My friend wants to participate. I absolutely should have Matthew. I should absolutely have you on one week. We'll talk about what does he like drinking. Bill Morissette.
I won't spoil it for too many people, but Matt's going to do something pretty exciting this summer. He's going to be out.
Well, I'll get him before he leaves or whatever he's doing. I don't care. Matthew, you do whatever you want. You're not important. I'm important. Thank you everyone for coming. Welcome to Wine Coach. It's the week you've all been waiting for. It's been 3 months and I finally was like, let's do Chardonnay. Yay. I know, I'm super excited. This is actually, I'm really excited by this lineup. I think I'll feel like we'll pull something out of this. I just don't know what it will be. And you know, I hated Chardonnay when I was a little baby boy. It was horrible wine. And here I am lining up some really delicious Chardonnays, but I can't do it alone. As always, I have a co-host. Sam Tate is here. You can see him on screen. Hello, Sam. How are you? Thanks for coming.
Very excited to do this. I'm doing very well. Very excited to drink Chardonnay, my favorite grape.
Right. Before we started, Sam was saying how he was preparing by listening to podcasts. So I'm really excited for you to impart some wisdom. As you know, if you watched 2 weeks ago when the Sachet Montrachet and Sake tasting, you would have noted how deceptive, how pointedly silent I was during the tasting because I had nothing to offer to that discussion, and I just left it to Sheila and Mariko. So, okay, keep it G-rated, Jacob, please, in the chat.
Yeah.
I love it. And also our silent song, Rachel is back after a brief hiatus last week. So make sure you please, ask her a million questions and keep her on her toes. Because there's a lot of information on each of these Chardonnays. But we should start off by asking Sam, why do you love Chardonnay? Tell us why it's your favorite grape.
It's my favorite grape for 2 reasons. I think the first reason is that it is a winemaker's grape. I think there's a lot of confusion around terroir and what terroir means. The more time that I've spent in Europe, the more I've learned that while terroir is important, at the end of the day, the greatest winemakers will almost always overtake the terroir and make wines that are truly inspirational. So I think Chardonnay is a workman's grape in that it's pliable enough that a great winemaker can make great wine in a lot of places. And I think you have 5 different wines from 5 different countries that are pretty exciting that kind of show that. But the most important reason is that Chardonnay is the world's greatest, to me, has produced the greatest white wines I've ever had, leaps and bounds. It has the ability with a decade or 2 decades of age to come to a place where it is totally entrancing. Because of the density of the grape and because of the power of it, it's able to take on oak. And once that oak dissipates in a proper good year with enough acidity, you get something that I think is more special than anything else I've ever tasted for white wine.
Yeah, I partly agree. I think it is absolutely capable of such like giddy heights of flavor and complexity and elegance, and wines, you will absolutely like your mind will be blown. You'll be like, I don't understand how could I taste this.
It's also capable of making a lot of really tragic wine, though, which is the other thing they always talk about Chardonnay. Is like it's really easy to make a middle of the road Chardonnay that costs $200. and that can be really frustrating.
Yeah, yeah, and it like, you know, as we talk about Chardonnay tonight, it'll become evident my sort of reticence to have an opinion, or how unsure on my feet I am about talking about Chardonnay and having an opinion, and that is because can be such a minefield for people to go. I don't know if this is worth $200. Is this worth $50? Sometimes you get like Chardonnay can blindside you. You can be convinced to pay a lot of money for something that isn't necessarily worth that money because it's Chardonnay, because it's got oak, and it's because it's from a great region. And it's just the minefield that sort of Chardonnay exists in. I don't think there are many other grapes that sort of fit that bill, where you're like, sometimes you get beautiful, you get some of the best ones in the world, and sometimes you get utter garbage, utter disgusting garbage. But it's super interesting to see. And my dog's barking. Check her, stop barking. But we should take some wines. I forgot the bottles are in my kitchen, so I'm going to quickly grab them. Everyone, shrink up number one. Yeah. Okay, I'll go get it.
So number one is the Burgundy. It's the Mikulski, and the story I have is interestingly, one of my mentors in Burgundy is a guy named Douglas Danielyak, who now is a very famous winemaker in California. And Douglas lived above Mikulski's dad's farm in Saint-Romain for a decade in the 80s. And Mikulski is actually someone that I've known for a number of years. And his wines continue to get better. And I think this is a really good example.
I really love Mikulski. I think the first time I had it was maybe 2 years ago, 2018. I was in Dallas for the advanced sommelier course, and I saw it in Texas, and I saw this bottle and this label really captivated me, and subsequently, have always ensured that I've had this in the shop on my list as much as I can, because I think it represents a really rare segment of Burgundy where it's affordable and approachable and respected across, from winemakers. Have a lot of respect for him and what he does, and you can't really ask for much more for Burgundy if you're looking for entry level Burgundy, of course.
Yeah.
So this is his Côte d'Or Chardonnay, 2018. It's a hot year in Burgundy, but this is his entry level. This is $60, as it says. I don't know. Please add your wisdom to this, Sam. But in a wine shop, I think $50 to $60 is like a really good price point for entry level Chardonnay. And I don't know if I'm willing to pay less than that, unless it's like a really secret producer that is making outstanding wine. But I wouldn't trust a $30, $40 wine.
No, I totally 100% agree with you. I think that one thing Sheila said on the Chasang thing that I've always stood by is that instead of buying a mediocre producer's wine, buy the great producer's entry level wine. And whether it's Pierre Moret or Mikulski or Bachelet Monod or Loire or Loire is more expensive, but I think the thing is always buy a great producer's entry level, and that's always going to cost you more than $50 or $60. But it's always going to provide way more value than spending an extra $30 on a Merceau Premier Cru from a tragic Negociant.
There's that great book, and to expand upon the idea of okay, now I have to shut the door because my dog is is it Inside Burgundy? I can't remember. I'm going to look it up while we chat. But there's this book that lists in detail these great producers in Burgundy and their wines and how their stories, and if Chardonnay and Pinot Noir and Burgundy is something you're captivated by and you want to like expand your knowledge on, like finding a book like that gives you that list of like top producers that you can find, because don't trust marketing, don't trust LCBO, don't trust, I don't know, marketing is really easy to tell people, or don't trust a label that says Grand, Grand Vin or Bourgogne doesn't really mean anything. You gotta do your research and find those wine writers who like will help you do that. And for me, Mikulski is like really middle of the road. Like he's a good medium level producer that's like, makes some amazing Merceau, but like for an entry level, like I don't know, super respected. Like no one's ever gonna like not drink it. I can bring a Mikulski to any dinner party, some get together, and everyone will happily drink it, which isn't always the case with Burgundy.
No, for sure.
Yeah, I've absolutely tried to pour you something fancy, some Burgundy once or twice in our years of friendship when you're like,
yeah,
you were very polite and you were very kind. It was very kind of you to humor my novice Burgundy, but that's fine.
Oh no, it's not even that it's novice. I think the other thing that's so important about Burgundy, I know I could talk about this for an hour and a half, and I know that's not what we're gonna do, but the other thing about Burgundy is that there's so many domains. And so part of it is to say that nothing is beginner, because I have been there I've been there quite a few times at this point. And like, it's just not about that. I'm constantly learning, constantly. And I think you just have to stay humble in wine in general, because things change, especially with climate change. Like things are changing so rapidly now that it's kind of an exciting time for Burgundy. There's a lot of, cheap stuff that's really exciting now.
That's the book I really like. I put in the chat. The Great Domains of Burgundy, a guide to the finest wine producers of the Côte d'Or by Remington Norman, which, I mean, is an awesome name.
It's an awesome name.
Why, how, when were you named Remington?
Yeah.
I think it's really great. Okay. Yeah. So Addie was asking, like, speaks about the minerality or chalkiness in Chardonnay. I mean, minerality is obviously a big part for me, is a big part of it. Does the minerality scream at me the way Chablis would? Probably. No, but I think it helps balance the oak. It helps balance the fruit flavor. It kind of keeps it grounded. I am posting only I am only posting to the things. Okay, here we go. I don't know. What's your opinion on minerality? Like what is there in Burgundy?
To me, yeah, I know it's a touchy question, and to me, it's more about a spine. It's more about texture. I'm a much more informal taster, in that what I'm looking for in minerality. I don't find a lot of chalk outside of some top sites in Merceau, but I find a lot like a great spine, and I think that's what kind of separates Burgundy and Chardonnay from most. Is this whatever you call it, whether it's mineral or acid or a combination of both. They both have this like clean slate that cuts right through and makes you want another glass. And I think that is the most important thing for Burgundy and Chardonnay, is like, especially when you get towards the top end. It's like top end California Chardonnay, you have 2 sips and you're like, most of the time it's so heavy and so intense that you just get tired. And Burgundy and Chardonnay, like if you drink the top wines, they are perplexing and entrancing, but at the same time, you want to keep drinking them, which I think is the most important thing to great wine, no matter how much it costs.
Yeah, 100%. You want to keep drinking it, and just like, I absolutely want to keep drinking this. And every time I like crack a bottle for a tasting of Mikulski or Burgundy, I'm like, I wonder if I could just like, take the rest of the bottle home, because it's just such a delight. And it should, especially Chardonnay, I think that it always should feel delightful and feel special. And I mean, because you're absolutely paying for a certain, quality, and you should feel like you should taste it. I think it's really great.
Yeah, it should definitely capture a sense of place too, right? And whether that's minerality or flavor, I think Chardonnay has the ability to be very site specific.
This is kind of opening up, and it's got this kind of herbal component going on, like a thyme or like some kind of I mean, it's like incensey kind of like thing, and I think I get that a lot with like. I think the first time I ever tasted is when with that Druin Chablis that you brought to the Chablis tasting that had this like intense kind of like fragrant aromatics that kind of blew my mind, and it's kind of delicious like that.
Yeah, I would suspect that's a very small amount of very expensive new French oak that does that. That would be my bet.
The I was reading the vineyards of these wines are just outside Meursault, which is like a very famous village for white Burgundy or Chardonnay from Burgundy. And this is kind of where Mikulski is most famous for his wines, based in Meursault. So, he should know how to make Chardonnay, and that's kind of another good indicator, because there are producers who are good at red wine and not necessarily as famous for their white wines. And there are producers who are really famous for their white wines and not necessarily their red wines. So, aligning that kind of like reputation as well will help you find a really good bottle. And again, we could talk an hour and a half about how to buy Burgundy without wasting your money. But we're going to move on to probably the weirdest wine in the lineup. And if it wasn't for my love of Austrian wine, I probably would never actually have ever include this in a lineup. But this is Emmerich Knoll, probably absolutely one of the greatest producers of Grüne Veltliner in Wachau and winemakers in Wachau, known for their very bold and ostentatious labels of Saint Urban. We tasted this in the Austrian tasting that we did in early March. But he makes a small amount of Chardonnay, which no one's ever asked for, but he does, which is super great. So I was reading and I was talking to Mariko about this, and she was saying how this is Emmerich Knoll III who makes these wines, but his father was a big fan of Burgundy. And so he planted a Burgundy vineyard in their holdings in Val or something, and made this wine. So it's a super weird wine. I don't know. What is everyone's opinions of this? Sam, what's your opinion of this wine?
Yeah, it's a little strange. I mean, it's tropical and it's also got that green grass, or like that something that's not fruit aspect to it. It also has a really interesting texture that I think definitely comes from the ripeness level that's required to hit Smuggard. Like it's got like a green pear, green tea thing to it too. It's pretty.
Yeah, that's a good note. It also has this there's also a very candy note to it, especially on the nose.
My hypothesis is that if this turns out really great, it'll turn out really great in like 3 or 4 years. Find Knoll's wines to be good young, but to be superlative down the line, if you can manage to hold your hands off them.
Yeah, I mean that is the trouble of Knoll wines, is that they are renowned for being drunk. Deserving age or age cellar, aging in a cellar to be able to at its full potential. And if you know me, you know well enough that I hate when people say that. But Knoll is one of the one producers. But even in the lineup, it's like pale. Like it doesn't look like Chardonnay. It's not like an ounce of color in that wine. It's like,
Yeah, I think they show the one thing I read from the importer was that they show 1 to 4 hours of skin contact on this, which is quite small, and I'm sure there's not a lot of oxygen to it, to the winemaking process, which is pretty clear. I mean, it's a unique wine, right? And that's kind of, I'm sure they make 600 bottles and goes to places like here in New York and San Francisco, and people get pumped to try it. It's not it's never a bad thing to keep trying new wines.
Yeah, when I posted on my Instagram that I was drinking a bottle of this, like people were like, "Whoa, where'd you get this? How'd you get this? What is this? I don't know." And it's a curiosity. I would also say that this is not endemic. This isn't typical of Austrian Chardonnay. There is some really amazing Chardonnay grown in Austria. Wachau the region home of Gruner and Riesling isn't really known for it. But if you go to Vienna, if you're in Steiermark, even in Burgenland, like they make some really classic, very delicious Chardonnay. So if this wine is kind of putting you off, not putting you off, but like adding a lot of question marks to, what you think of Chardonnay, understandably, this is a unique and very, eccentric wine. But Austrian Chardonnay is very respectable. Just I would never probably look in Wachau to like find great examples of it. I think Vienna and Steiermark are much better places and have a richer history of Chardonnay, and I guess oak use as well. But yeah, I don't know. And for those who I was telling Ted before, but so Schmarag is a ripeness category of the grapes. So when they're picked, they have to have a certain sweetness, a certain ripeness to it. And those who may be more familiar with German ripeness, this is kind of Auslese kind of ripeness level, which is quite if you have an Auslese Riesling, you would expect it to have an element of sweetness to it. I've never heard of Auslese Chardonnay.
Not yet.
Not yet. And now that I put it in the universe, I feel like someone is going to pour me an Auslese Chardonnay, and I'm going to be pretty impressed.
All right.
Okay, so that's that, everyone. I don't know. Nothing else to say on this. It's delicious. And would I drink a bottle? Absolutely. Have I drunk a bottle? Absolutely.
Would you drink another one? Absolutely.
Absolutely. I just don't know what to think. There's no Chardonnay that tastes like that. And I don't know in a way that needs to be. I don't know if Chardonnay needs to taste like this.
No.
And I would say that Enrico, who represents this wine, and probably Emmerich Knoll himself would also agree with me that like this is an heirloom of their family history, and they make it in that way. So I'm happy to respect that, and it is what it is.
Yeah.
Okay, wine number 3. We're going to Niagara. Cloudsley Cellars, Wingfield Vineyard. Until I tasted this wine, I wasn't familiar with the Wingfield Vineyard, owned by the Wismer family. But I mean, when I think of great Chardonnays from Niagara, I don't like Foxcroft gets thrown around a lot. But when I tasted this against the Foxcroft, because he makes both of these, he makes a Foxcroft and a Wingfield. This was kind of the one I preferred. It was a little less oak influence. It had, and it had a lot more sort of it spoke to more minerality, and like a bit more of the fruit was kind of driving it. And I really enjoyed it. But I don't know. I'm curious as your impression of this one.
I like this one too. The oak is definitely intense compared to the other 4, but I find it funny if you go back, if you have one left, like some of the whatever you call it, minerality or structures, like they're somewhat similar. Mm-hmm. And I think that kind of speaks to where we're going in terms of Chardonnay. I think like there's a really exciting path forward as somebody that has done a lot of traveling and has brought a lot of Ontario Chardonnay to places like Burgundy and other places. We're certainly not there yet, but we have the raw materials. This one kind of shows it.
What advice would you have for Chardonnay lovers or wine lovers to like navigating Niagara or like Canadian Chardonnays?
I mean, you know what? I've shockingly not as much experience as I would want, but to me, it's always like we're really blessed to have Niagara and the county so close. So my whole thing is always taste, taste, taste. I've learned a lot less than most people have by books, and a lot more by spending time, money, and energy traveling and tasting. And I think that you learn a lot by that. I think that in general, where the county had a really early start where they were better. I think Niagara on the Lake is getting much better as time goes on. Less oak, less obtrusive stirring. But we have the raw materials, and we have a lot of limestone, and climate change is not good for many things, but for Ontario Chardonnay and Riesling, it's going to be a really good thing, I think.
I get it. Like on the back end of that palate, there's like this thought of like this density on concentration of flavor and fruit. That is for me always a hallmark of like quality wine, and like I can see that kind of developing, and it doesn't taste, it gets light or like you know, a weak wine. It has a lot of power to it, oak aside, but like from the fruit and from like the structure, there's a lot going on there. And I'm as someone who doesn't pick a Chardonnay like as their first choice. I'm excited to sort of see how this progresses, and like, you know, Chardonnay is a great wine grown in Canada, both in the county and both in Niagara. So I think, you know, you should have an appreciation for it, and you're right, a curiosity, an ability to explore it and like be open to it, I think is going to like, Canada is reaching a time where preconceptions and of what that wine used to be, Canadian wine used to be, it's not a time to hold on to those things. It's a time to like explore and like, you know, rediscover some really cool winemaking.
Yeah, and what a great summer to do it. Like I think that or at least the first part of the summer, international travel will be really difficult. And so I'm fully planning on spending at least a couple of weeks in BC learning that, which I think is another thing, which is that we in Ontario don't taste a lot of BC wine. It has a lot to do with the way our import laws work, where we treat BC wines as imported wines, which, you know, talk to your local MHA because it's totally insane. But there's just so much amazing stuff. And I think the other thing is like, check out the county more. I know a lot of people taste a lot of Niagara on the lake wines. Like the county is more than the name that shall not be spoken. There's a lot of really good winemakers out there.
Absolutely.
And then not a lot of them hit the LCBO because they're so small. And if you know the way wine is made out there, half the time all their vines are destroyed. So it's like, it's a crazy place, but when the wines are good, the wines are sensational, both Chardonnay and Pinot.
Yeah. I'm fully excited to plan a Peter Pantry tour of Niagara and the county come fall when everyone's vaccinated. In the middle of harvest, going down with a bunch load of tourists, asking really difficult questions, annoying people a lot. It's kind of the only thing I'm looking forward to in 2021. I hope everyone's going to come. Yeah. I think there is an inherent there with pouring a Canadian wine in a lineup of some really world-class winemakers across the board. These are world-renowned winemakers. Can be risky and can perhaps not show the Canadian winemaker in the best light. But this is holding its own, and I think it has a unique character, and it does feel, you know, not as, you know, if you know Niagara, you know it is in a position of like in a transitionary moment in time where winemaking is evolving, and it's good to see that this is, you know, slowly, like, this is a really nice wine, and I'm really excited to drink it. And I've finished, you know, I'm much more excited to drink this than wine number 2. Sorry.
Hey, the other thing, the last thing I'll say, yeah, so sorry. The last thing I'll say on that though is that I have some pretty crazy friends who have some pretty insane cellars, and I've thrown some Ontario Chardonnays and Pinots, and I had and I forget, it was a Pro Morset Pinot, but at Pro Morset come second in a lineup of a bunch of wines that were, I think the theme was Grand Cru Burgundy 2010 and older. And so that kind of tells you, when you do everything blind, Ontario's got a really exciting future, because when you put them in a crazy lineup, they sneak in, and I
100% agree. And like, I know I am absolutely like remiss in the fact that like I haven't kept up with winemaking in in Ontario, and like having a more of a well-rounded kind of like knowledge of these great winemaking in Ontario. And I've been saying this for almost 3 years now that I need to learn more about. I need to like go visit more. I need to like learn more, and so maybe this is the no. Who knows? I'm so busy. I don't know when I'll do it, but I like having a new. I do enjoy having a new winery under my belt that I can recommend, and Cloudsley is definitely one of them. And I hope to explore it more and taste some more. That's all I got.
Amen.
Amen. Let's go. Wine number 4. Okay. Domaine de Pelican. Hey, yeah.
This is a really good example.
There's so many things that I think a year, maybe 18 months ago, I would have been like head over heels with this wine. Almost I was head over heels with this wine when I met the Marquis d'Angeville at the Grand Cru tasting, and I was tasting his wines, and I was like, oh my God, these are amazing. I don't know how I feel anymore. Not that I feel badly. It's just I know Jura a bit more. I know Burgundy a bit more. And am I excited for a Burgundy master making wine in Jura? Is that the Jura wines I'm craving? No, but this is a iconic wine, nonetheless. This is Domaine de Pelican, Arbois, which is a village in Jura. So Domaine de Pelican is another winemaking winemaking kind of project. It's not a project. It's just another thing that they do by Marquis d'Angeville, who is very famous for his Volnay, I want to say.
Yeah, Volnay. Yeah. The story of this wine is actually cool. It's like he's a very gastronomic guy. Like he loves to go out and eat and drink. And he always gets sommeliers to pour wine blinds. And he had some old Jura wine and was like, wow, that wine's so good. I'm going to go buy a winery. And so he bought Jacques Pouffinet's winery, which if you know anything about the culty side of this region, it's like he was serious. Cool thing about Jura is how small it is.
Yeah.
The soils are incredible, but it's tiny. And so you have these 3 years in a row now where we have very low production. And this kind of shows the year, but like Jura to me is the most exciting region in the entire world for Chardonnay. It to me has the most ability to render what we like now, which is power, energy, and precision. And I think that Jura has forever had it. It's just now people are actually figuring out how to make wine that's not oxidized, which is some people's flavor, but it's a hard as an everyday wine to drink.
Absolutely. We tasted it last week in the Alpine wine session, and it was a oxidative Sauvignon Chardonnay blend, and it was a thing. Like it was very delicious and spoke very much of Jura terroir and the style and that kind of Alpine quality. And from an intellectual basis, that's kind of those wines really excite me. I like that kind of style. I also like the more natural sort of on the edge of like natural winemaking, edge of like wine that's even drinkable style that Jura can make. And then there's obviously there's this kind of like uber classic style of wine. I actually have his. He hasn't. There's a Sauvignon he makes that I have in the cellar at work. It's like skin macerated Sauvignon, and it's like, what happens when you ask a Burgundy winemaker to make an orange wine? And I have it I have 3 bottles of it, so I'm really excited to actually taste it. But I really like these wines. I think they're super solid. Like, I know exactly what I'm tasting. I'm tasting really precise winemaking from a region that is really good at magnifying precision, or making really precise wines.
Yeah.
I think it's
I also think this wine is pretty shut down at the moment, even though you can taste all the flavors, but the precision is, and all the precision is there. But this wine is, you can smell it kind of off the nose. The hint of sulfur, like it's reductive winemaking, which is great, which is amazing that we haven't talked about already. But this whole idea of like the whole idea of like reductive winemaking with Chardonnay is so important. So reduction is the exact opposite of oxidation. So it's protecting the wines. So they call it Rouleau winemaking. It predates Rouleau by about 45 years, but they've called it that. But what's really important to know about it is it's that idea of like that toasty thing you get on most Chardonnays. You guys tasted PYCM, who's about as reductive as it gets. And so I think it's all about balance. I think before there was not enough reduction. I think now everybody's doing it, and it's kind of crazy in a lot of senses. And often,
I mean, that's a good point that you make, right? Like, if you want, if we turn back to our audience and go, okay, how do we distill that fact into useful information for people? Like, if everyone's talking about reduction, is it something you should avoid? Is it something you need to like manage? In that, do you keep the wines in a cellar for a while? Do you aerate it? Is it something, are there vintages you should avoid? Are there winemakers you should avoid? I'm just curious as to like, what's the takeaway from the talk of reductive winemaking, which is slightly more boring than soil talk or rootstock, clone talk. Like, yeah. I get it. It's a really important subject, but I'm curious as to like how do you help people navigate such a.
Well, it's different. It's different between what people think and what sommeliers think, and like I think there's a real dichotomy there. I think there's a real jump between sommeliers love it. So I think there's a large percentage of the sommelier community that's really doesn't like any Chardonnay that doesn't have that flinty, toasty thing to it, which is to me a sign of that we drink wines really young, and reductive winemaking will expose the fruit quicker, in a sense that if you give it a couple hours of air, you'll get a sense of a wine, whereas more classically made wine with more oxidation involved will take longer. But at the end of the day, the most important thing to come away with is there are producers in Burgundy that are very good and very reductive. So you need years before you open the wines. So it's just about understanding, and it's about asking people's opinions about it and looking online. But there's a lot of really amazing Burgundy producers now where you can't really even drink the wines in the first year you get them. And then there are producers that are much more balanced. And that is kind of the most interesting thing, in that you can have other people tell you, but at the end of the day, you have to find your own taste buds. Which is you kind of find by drinking, and that's kind of the way I've been educated. So that's kind of the way I tell people to figure it out. But at the end of the day, the most important thing with reductive winemaking is that it's gotten really out of hand, and it's definitely overtaken terroir expression and winemaker expression. And now you get these wines that are just pure toasty reduction, which I think can be a negative. But that it's in pursuit, especially in Burgundy, it's in pursuit of that premature oxidation effect, where there was so many very expensive wines that got toasted real fast.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, I don't have the secret to like help people navigate reductive winemaking. It is a part of Chardonnay. It's a really like a big component of Chardonnay. It's not necessarily easy to understand in terms of like the science of it and like helping you navigate what to buy and what to spend your money on. It is also difficult that sommeliers and wine professionals often use, this wine is reductive. The tone tends to have a negative connotation that the wine isn't ready yet. And it can be difficult to like, again, it's just another layer of intimidation and confusion that we maybe unnecessarily add to help people choose wines, but it is a fact. So if anyone has an infographic or something that can help me, please send it my way. I would really love to share it with everyone. But it is something that when in balance can add a layer of complexity and add sort of an element that's super delicious. But also in a lot of ways that it can, it's an excuse to like not drink wines young, and which I agree to a certain respect, but I also don't agree to. I don't like selling people wines in my shop and telling them they can't drink them for 3 years. That's not a part of like what I like to do. So I guess this is just going back in the cellar for another 3 years, and I'll put it on the shelf a bit later. But needless to say, I really like this wine. I like this kind of like restrained Chardonnay. It's kind of what I would expect from Jura.
Yeah, it's got a really stunning extra component. Like it's not even herbs. It's like yeah, maybe it is, but like citrus too, lemongrass. He's a great winemaker. Listen, you can't fight that. And I think that's a really good example of what we were talking about earlier about buying a guy's entry level wines. It's like these are single vineyard Arbois from the vineyards that used to be one of the most famous producers, from a guy that's incredibly famous in Burgundy, and they're a fraction of what his top end Bordeaux is.
Absolutely. And when I met him at Grand Cru, a wine tasting that a wine agency Helpman does, that was the wines he wanted to talk about. This is the wines he wanted to show. He had his Pommard and his Volnay Village there, the Pinot Noirs, but it was the Jura ones, the Domaine de Pelican ones that he really wanted to like showcase. So like, and this is a 60, 70-year-old man. Like, if he's excited about these kinds of wine, I want to be excited too. And I am excited about these wines. I bought a lot of Domaine de Pelican in this year's allocation, and I really want to share it with everyone as sort of, things get different and better. And they're really special wines. And in terms of if I was to do a lineup of Jura wines, I would absolutely want to include this, because I think this is, when D'Angeville went to Jura, everyone started looking at Jura, and people started to take notice of this. I think that's a really important moment in history. Obviously, there has always been great winemakers, but that's kind of where I landed on in terms of Jura and all the cool stuff. It was tasty. Have you had any of his old Pelican stuff?
Okay. Older, like I've had some. I don't know what the first year he released. I think I have a bunch still sitting. I think I have 3 years worth of wine sitting in the cellar. I'd have to look. I buy a lot of that stuff, and they had Magnums this year, which I bought some of through the LCBO. They're great wines. I've also, the reds are really good. Like the Trois Cépages, I forget the blended one is amazing.
Trois Cépages. Yeah. I think I've got some of his Pulsard, and I think I've got some of his Pinot Noir. There wasn't a huge amount that they released this year, but I mean, I kind of got a bit of everything, and I'm excited to like taste through them through the year. They're a really great interpretation of Jura. And this is an exciting region. I wish there was like a marketing board of Jura that would send me over there.
I think the Comté marketing board is far bigger and far more well-funded than Jura.
I know. And speaking of Comté, it's Cheese Corner. Holly has already said that. Was it Holly? Or Carrie? Carrie was already saying. Someone was saying. Who was talking about Comté? Someone was saying. Oh my God. So much Comté. Oh yeah, Harry was saying Comté. So Comté is a really good cheese to have with wine number 4. I was going to age cheddar, but my week's been crazy. But I got some Prima Donna, which is the Netherlands' answer to Parmesan. Which is really fun. Super intense, Gouda, perfect for Chardonnay. Did you have a cheese, Sam?
Not yet. I have a feast coming.
What's your feast?
I'm gonna do an entire roasted chicken after this. It's gonna be great.
What's that wine bottle behind your head? I'm so curious.
Oh, if I wasn't, I'm quarantining right now. If I wasn't, I was quarantining as of today, but this is a bottle of Jacques Frederic Meunier Chambol Musigny Premier Cru Les Fouet.
Meunier Chambol Musigny, yeah, sure.
Yeah.
I mean, I wish.
Yeah, it's well, once I'm not quarantining, we'll drink one together.
Yeah, we will. Hopefully you'll bring it. I certainly don't know how to get my hands on that one. But wine number 4, wine number 5. Oh my god, with so many wines. Jacob's ordering room service. If you'd watched the Syrah one, that was a pretty iconic moment in wine coach history.
Oh, was it?
Where Jacob, as a co-host on camera, ordered a cheese plate from Adamo's Hockley Valley Hotel. It was pretty funny. So this, I feel like of all the wines that I poured here, this was going to be the wine that like excited you the most, and the one you would want to talk about the most, because this has all the Sam Fritz Tate hallmarks. It's iconic winemaking, like really like well-made pedigrees, a really great region known for like that is excites every single person that drinks it, and you can kind of like run with it, and people will like suck it up.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you. You were absolutely right. I think the world of Chakra. So Chakra is the man behind it is the Marchese who created Sassicaia 2 generations before him. It's his grandson, and I met him for the first time 4 years ago when I was at Commando G's flowering party, and it's funny.
When first time roll it back. What's the flowering party? Sorry.
It's a party where every 2 years they throw a party where they get all of their importers and all of their friends together, and they have a bunch of other of their friends who are winemakers pour for them, and it's in Grados, right on top of a mountain, and you party there for 2 days. It's a lot of fun, and we are supposed to go in Douro. It's something you should definitely check out. By the way, I'm no longer the agent. You can talk to Jason Axsmith about getting into that. But he was pouring. He was pouring it for somebody. He was pouring for somebody else, but he was pouring it under the table. He's pouring Chardonnay under the table because he was so embarrassed. He didn't want for anybody to beat up on it. And me and a couple other sommeliers who I won't name were so blown away by it. We thought, because Rouleau was pouring across the table, and we thought it was one of his wines, but it was in fact. And now we know that Rouleau helps make these wines. But yeah, this is a super unique region. I mean, I don't know that Northern Patagonia was famous for Chardonnay before this, certainly famous for Pinot. But what I love about this is this is a combination of what's best from number 5, what's best from number 3, and what's best from number 1. And what I mean is that there's integration of all those 3 kinds of winemaking. And I think that at its best, that's what Chardonnay is all about. It is somebody that manages to use a bunch of different winemaking styles and blend them together. And this is a really good interpretation of that. Is it too young? For sure. I think this in 18 months is going to gain a lot of depth, but you can feel it all there. And I think that with really great young Burgundy, no matter how young it is, you can still feel all of the components are there and they're seen together.
I definitely get this expression of Chardonnay that's like, this has this herbal component, and the acidity sits so much more forward on my palate, and I'm really excited. I mean, Chakra is the only Patagonian Chardonnay that I've ever had, and I would love to taste some more of it. So to sort of see what that kind of climate, what that region sort of brings to Chardonnay. But this is super fun. I love the label. It's kind of one of my favorite in the world, of the little ants.
Yeah.
Ants, bees. I think they're bees this time. And then there's another. They have actually 2 different front labels. Just quickly go back. Jean-Marc Rouleau, if you were to rank Burgundy producers, where would he sit in your opinion?
For white, he's definitely in the top 5.
And that's kind of what the reason I asked was that when you see Jean-Marc Rouleau on the label when you buy it in collaboration, that's a pretty big deal. And like, as someone who is kind of a novice in Burgundy, even I recognize the name, and I was like, oh, that's significant. And would you say that you get that winemaking from here? Like, can you taste the winemaking in it?
Yeah, you can taste the winemaking. You can taste that kind of like, he has this like, I don't know. I taste texturally before I taste flavors, but like there's this like silky texture. It's like not quite. I use it sometimes in emails when I send out emails, but it's like liquid cashmere, which sounds insane, and I know it sounds like a marketing term, but it's there's like something that like is very soft to all of his wines and like very integrated. There's also like a green, not necessarily even a fruit, but like something close to a fruit note that I find from his wines. You definitely see his winemaking there. The one thing I will say though on Rouleau and a lot of those guys in the top 5 of the best winemakers is don't kid yourself and spend $400 on a bottle of their Merceau when you can buy a lot of other great producers' top wines or one of his wines from Chakra for $100. Like the wines are really, really great, but they're not 4 times as great as a lot of the other stuff. When I say buy the entry level wines, it's because those wines remain relatively well priced. The jump a lot of people make with great Chardonnay is that they go, okay, this is the best producer. I'll spend $800 on a bottle of X, and it's often disappointing because $800 is way too much to spend on most bottles of wine.
I mean,
if not all.
This is recorded, Sam. I don't know if you knew that because people will.
I'm sure some people are going to play this back for me.
The alcohol in the Chakra, 12.5. 12, even 12. I have the Manque Cuvée, and then I have the Chakra, which is like $200 a bottle. But both, I don't know. I'm super excited by these wines, and I'm really happy that I can kind of like share them with people and share them in like, this is probably a wine that I've got even like the high end ones I could put in a pouch and sell it by the glass essentially. But I think this is a wine that a lot of people should taste, and I think this is a really good marker of like a different expression of New World. I think is kind of where I'm coming at. Like we didn't taste a Californian Chardonnay, great, because why?
I hope nobody.
But if people are like, oh, I don't like French Chardonnay, or I don't like Burgundy.
Yeah. Like
I want to punish them by pouring them, like giving them this rather than a Californian, because that's kind of it. But in your lineup today, like what was the wines like? Walk me through what were your impressions? Like, what was your favorite wine, Sam?
I think 5 was my favorite wine. 3 was surprising. In terms of the delineation and the integration of the oak with the minerality. 4 was really good, I think, in a tough spot. 1 was really good, really crystalline. It doesn't show the vintage a lot, which I find interesting. I'm not sure if that's the age of the vines or the way that he's picking. It doesn't show a lot of the fruit from 18. And 2 is an interesting wine. I mean, like we said, it's like I don't think I ever need to taste another Chardonnay that tastes like that. But but I would definitely, had I never tasted it before, I order a bottle and happily drink would be the polite term for what I would do with it. But it's crushable wine.
It's absolutely an interesting one. He actually makes a rosé as well. Marika was telling me.
I'm sure he does. I'm sure
Emerald makes a rosé, and she tells me how many years she asked him to send it, and he gets so angry at her because he's like, the world will never see this rosé. The export market will never see this rosé, and I kind of like that attitude, and I'm really interested to visit him when I eventually get to Austria and taste that rosé and go, so what Chardonnay? Tell me all about what's your story, and then we can revisit the Chardonnay Wine Coach maybe 2023 or something, and I'll pour this again and we'll see, because I mean I'm never going to sell any of this, so We'll take the same vintage, and we'll.
But not me.
And I'll tell you the real deal of Noel Chardonnay, the strangest Chardonnay ever created by one of the greatest winemakers in the world. Sam, thanks for coming. I really appreciate your time. And there's probably no other better person to talk about Chardonnay with me, apart from like Sheila and Rico, who I already had on. So
I greatly appreciate the time and greatly appreciate the honor of coming on.
Yeah, you're a wonderful, like, you know so much about like you talk about when you talk about Chardonnay, you can't not talk about Burgundy, and there's no other person I look to help me through Burgundy, and you've already helped me numerous times over the years to navigate this like minefield region, and I'm really excited. But I hope everyone enjoyed it. This is as I said at the start, I wish I had some. I was hoping there were some takeaways. I have no takeaways. I like all these wines on their own, and I'm excited that I have them in the shop and then I can share them with people. I don't know where to go from there. Where do I want to taste? What Chardonnays do I want to taste? I mean, if I had the Illawarra, which we'd already tasted about a month ago, I would have absolutely put that on there, and I think that would have added a little kink. But 6 wines in an hour, that's a lot for people. It's only Tuesday. But Sam, enjoy your roast chicken. Next week we've got flavor pairings, which is so interesting, and I need to do a lot. I need to like brush up on my biochemistry. Thankfully, I went to university for biochemistry, and thankfully I know I can talk about it. But we're eating inspired by Francois Chartier's molecular flavors. We're going to pair some wines and some crazy ingredients to sort of get some fun expressions of like transitions of wines in flavors, and I'm really excited for that. And then we're doing the quiz 2 weeks down the track, which you don't know about, but I'm having Krista Oben and Kieran Coyne team create some sommelier teams, and we're going to do a blind tasting quiz, which I think is going to be fun. And very inappropriate. It's going to be a mature audience only.
Ruffians.
I know they've been desperately trying to recruit people. I'm sure that I'm surprised you haven't got the call, but I'm sure that someone will give you a call because no one knows classic wines like you, my friend. Thank you very much. Everyone have a lovely night. If you still want to talk about Chardonnay, I have actually a lot more to say. I'm just trying to be polite, but we're going to chat. We're going to connect in Clubhouse after this and talk Chardonnay, and I want to hear everyone's opinions. And it's going to be super fun. But Sam, have a lovely night. Enjoy your quarantine. I'll see you soon. And thank you again. Thank you so much. You were very honored. You said you were very honored to be invited, but the honor is absolutely all mine. Everyone have a lovely night. I'll see you soon. Ciao.